The state body set up to help people who are unable to pay their debts has admitted that only 55 deals have been agreed in its first 6 months of operation. Only 4 of those agreements involved the restructuring of mortgage debt. Well, let's stay with that because we're joined here in studio by independent TD Stephen Donnelly. Thanks for joining us on the programme. Deputy Donnelly, you say this result from the Insolvency Service, after admittedly only 6 months, is very disappointing. Why?
Yeah, the figures are very disappointing. The government target is that all mortgages would have unsustainable mortgages would have an offer of a new sustainable restructuring made by the end of this year. So these figures that only 50-odd deals have been done obviously is very disappointing. There's about 180,000 mortgages which are in trouble in one form or another, which are in arrears or have been restructured and are no longer in arrears. This is not the fault of Lorcan O'Connor and the Insolvency Service. This is the fault of the legislation. When the legislation was going through the Dáil last year, we warned Minister Shatter about the bank veto and we warned him about the complexity. The legislation is probably good legislation to deal with insolvency in a normal economy. But what we needed was legislation that dealt with the crisis. And unfortunately, the ISI, the Insolvency Service, hasn't been given any teeth in the legislation.
Is it, though, perhaps just a little early to be passing judgment at this stage? Maybe you're rushing to judgment here because they make the point, the Insolvency Service make the point they have, I think something like 500 cases already on the books that they're working towards €500 million in terms of value of debt, that it's early stages yet. Some people aren't actually aware that the service is there and available to them.
It is early stages, and I'm delighted that there are more cases in the pipeline. We don't know how many of those 500 are going to turn into actual cases, but I hope it is a lot of them. The problem is we are dealing with the crisis. There are hundreds of thousands of men, women and children all over the country living in homes whose mortgages are in arrears, and they're stuck. They're stuck in a debt trap. So we need legislation that can do two things. That can deal with the crisis and get all of these distressed mortgages moving and sorted, and then can work in the economy when we get back to a normal state.
Is there anything to be said for the point that, and I heard it be made by the agency, that the mere existence of this process actually is enabling people to go into their banks and to do a deal, because the bank realises that, well, if they don't do a deal at this point, they'll be put into this process? No,
I don't buy that. I've spoken to a lot of lenders, and we had a lot of the organisations who are working with lenders, the Finance Committee yesterday, and it's fair to say that the lenders are not in any way scared of the Insolvency Service. Why would they be? They've got a veto. What they are scared of, and the reason that deals are being done on the side informally, is because the government, the central bank, has said, look, if you don't hit these targets, we're going to start penalising you financially. That's what's going on. The problem is the government targets focus only on quantity of deals done. They don't focus on consistency, and they don't focus on the quality of those deals. Last year, Minister Shatter, to his credit, said that he would watch very closely to make sure that the Insolvency Service was working. And as soon as we found out that it isn't working as fast and as well as it needs to, which we now know, he would immediately instigate a review of the legislation, and that now needs to happen.
All right, just a final word on cost, because there is a cost associated with this process, which, and I think other deputies have been making the point that that effectively excludes a lot of people who really are financially on their knees.
Yeah, the problem is this: to apply for a personal insolvency arrangement, which is what you would use if you have mortgage problems, it costs €500. Now that's before you hear from your bank. So what you would have to believe is that a family who's already struggling to pay its mortgage, to feed its kids, whatever, can find €500 in cash to give to the Insolvency Service, with the potential and probability that the bank will simply sit in the background and say, no, we're exercising the veto. So two things need to happen very, very quick, or three. What the Insolvency Service can do immediately is reduce or eliminate those fees. That should happen now. There's two things need to happen with the legislation. The legislation needs to be changed so that the bank veto is removed, and so that the process becomes quicker and simpler and less expensive and less intimidating for the borrowers who need its help.
OK, we shall see. Stephen Donnelly, thanks for talking to us.
Thank you.